It was on the on the 8th day of April, 1942, that our line broke. We hit the ground, and when we got up, we had Japanese guards, soldiers all around us. They told us to throw down our arms, and we did. And then they herded us to the road, and the BATAAN death march had already started further down, and we joined there. Some of the people who were too sick, too tired, or too hungry that they can't go on, they would be forced to dig a very shallow grave and just being shot right on the side of the road. They didn't give us water. There was water all on both sides at times, but they didn't give us any water. We walked until we came to San Fernando, La Union, where we were herded into boxcars, cattle boxcars. We were just packed in there. And when it was open, some of the guys just collapsed because they had been dead on the way already anyway. We had malaria, we had dysentery, we had beriberi, all kinds of disease caused by malnutrition. We were just about gone, wanting no water and food, and some Japanese and some American, they asked for a detail. And he said, anybody who wants to volunteer will get water. I volunteer. So they took us, we came to a great big grave. In the middle was a pile of bodies. And the Japanese gave us shovels and they said, bury them. So we started putting dirt on top of those bodies, and all of a sudden we heard the voice coming up from one of those bodies, and we stopped. The Japanese asked the American, why did they stop? And the American asked us. We told him, there's a person down there who's still alive. And the Japanese must have said, bury them or be buried. And the American told us, you bury them or be buried. So we buried them. And that guy was still talking. Quite an experience.
When Pearl Harbor was bombed, December 7, 1941, I was a Navajo silversmith doing my trade. I got a postcard from Uncle Sam saying that I want you. That means I was drafted. I was drafted for this code talkers in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, I was a ninth grader there, shipwreck. They used to call it agricultural high school. I was kind of a wild Indian, I suppose, in the class. So in order for the teacher to get rid of me, she strongly recommended that I join up. They told us then what they were going to really use us for, that they were going to use the Navajo language as a code, because the Japanese were really, really smart. You know, they really were deciphering the American code. So they thought that they use a new angle in sending codes, language code, and that's how they employed, or they got us into the Marine Corps to use our language.
Because it was so highly secretive, these young guys were never really allowed to write home and tell about their war experiences and this sort of thing. The letters were censored.
We took Saipan and Tinian. We went on to Iwo Jima, which was our last combat invasion over there, as a quota with the 4th Marine Division. I think, to me, Iwo Jima is one of the greatest battles in the Pacific. The code talkers were right in there. doing their work and fight. During the day, they'd be fighting. During the night, they'd be operating the radio, sending messages and code talkers.
It was much quicker than the Morse code.
So a message started coming in. So I wrote it down. Sheep's eye is cured. Nas onsen sai traji dahaljan. Betra de be benatnazi. And when I finished writing it down, the Marines in the foxhole said, "What's up, Chief?" So I just pointed up there. And they saw it. Oh, those guys just jumped right out of their foxhole and they started cheering. And when they saw that, man, that really made the Marines really enjoy that they're winning.
The Japanese, they never broke the Navajo code.
When we arrived in Wellingborough and we walked into the barracks, it was the barracks of the squadron that had been shot down by the Germans. The clothes were still hanging on the racks. The pictures of their parents, their wives, their children, their girlfriends were still up. When the lights went out and we went to bed, in the very same beds that those young people had occupied. It was eerie, and it was a long time before we went to sleep.
It's unbelievable the things that you would see on this crummy little 9-square-mile island. I saw young boys with their arms off, with their legs off, their faces shot off. Of course, there was some you saved and some you really couldn't save because of the condition they were in. We had one guy with both legs and both arms off, and when we sent him to the ship, he was still alive. You look back and you say, how did I do it? One morning I went into a tent and there was about 12 or 13 men laying there, but they were all dead, every one of them. And then you would see somebody that looked like they'd breathe. And I said one time I said to one of the doctors, I said, that guy's still alive. He says, no, you just don't die all at once. It was just a catastrophe.
On the airplane, as we were riding to Detroit, I said, General, I don't understand you. You're a civil engineer, and here you are working with all these world-famous physicists and chemists, metallurgists. I don't know how you do it. And he said, Bob, you don't watch carefully. He said, don't you watch how I start fights all the time? And he said, everybody hates my guts. He says, I'm probably the most hated guy in the whole U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. He says, all I do is when we're at a stumbling block in an argument, he says, I start a fight between guys that I know collectively what the answer ought to be, or at least the best bet. I let these guys solve their own problems. He says, hell, I don't know a damn thing about what they're talking about. But I listen to them, and out of what they're saying, I can get a feeling for where the strength of the argument may lie. And then I make up my mind as to which horse I'm going to ride for the next week. And then we'll go through the whole process again. He says, I get so I hate myself. But he says, it is effective. It's a hell of a way to run a railroad, but it does work.